For me, it began with a vivid dream. I was running away from a large tsunami. People were screaming, and then I felt the heavy crash of water on my body. Ever since then, I would always wonder if that was a past life. And for me, it began with a vivid dream. For you, how did the search for your past lives begin? If past lives do exist, this belief opens the door to reincarnation, to soul contracts, and to the invisible world that is part of this orchestra that we synchronize with. Join us tonight as we talk with Meg, a hypnotherapist and astrologist, as we try to understand why the past is as significant as the present. Enjoy. Tonight we have a guest who is an astrologer and a past life regression therapist, and a lot of the people who listen to the podcast are interested in both. Actually, we haven't had an astrologer and a past life regression therapist as a guest, and we would, of course, this will be a deep dive. My questions will dive deep into this stuff because a lot of our past guests have not delved into this kind of craft, and if some have, it's mostly on the surface level only. So, good evening, Meg. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest on our podcast.
You're welcome. And thank you also, Nick, for having me in your podcast. This is probably my second interview. I'm not very, I don't know, I guess I'm not so prolific online. I really stick to word of mouth and people I know, and then Facebook, and that's it. I don't have Instagram. I don't promote there, nothing. So I'm surprised that you found me. But thanks for inviting me. It sounded very interesting when you presented it to me, so I'm glad to be here.
Thank you also. Thank you also for agreeing. Kasi yun nga, we have a lot of questions, and it's up to you if you decide to answer them or not. It's really up to you. But the first thing I'd like to ask is how you got into past life regression.
Well, many reasons. I started when I was young, although I'm 50 by the way. So when I say young, I mean many years ago. And when I was about eight, maybe between 8 and 12, I used to see myself sleeping, and I used to leave my body a lot. And during these experiences, I didn't know what was going on. I was too young. And back in the 80s, there were no books about it in the Philippines. Nothing. I couldn't find any information, so I just kept it to myself. And I spent my whole life wondering until, I joined Science of Man and Mind with Charlie Barreto. I was also trained in Silva Mind Method and many other things back in the 80s that when I think it was Jaime Licauco that was giving the Silva Mind classes, but then I got there with Judy Kua when Jaime Licauco left. But I also took a lot of his classes because I was looking for answers. I was trying to figure it out. And as I got older and I started to go deeper into my journey, I met so many teachers, friends, my guru, who is a yogi, although she never admits she's my guru, Bella Lipat. We used to have every Saturday, back in the 90s and early 2000s, we used to sit together, have dinner every Saturday with people invited from all over the world who practice all sorts of things, whether it's witchcraft, yoga, astrocartography, you name it, from everywhere. And we just share and exchange our experiences. And so I'd met some people who had past life regression experiences abroad, and I couldn't find one here except in Jaime Licauco's classes where we would go into regression. But 2 years ago, I wanted to really use astrology and take it a bit further, because astrology is a good guide, but it's not enough. It's a roadmap. It gives you clarity, but you still need to practice something if you want to transcend or become a better person or live life with ease, right? And a lot of karma shows up on the charts. And I didn't know how to guide them through that karma except through what I was seeing. There's a difference between telling them what their karma is or what needs clearing and actually helping them heal it. So I went online and I went looking for other modalities that could help my clients because I don't use astrology for predictions only. I do predictions, but really the more important thing is if you're able to handle your natal chart, if you understand it deeply, because that's who you really are, and you're able to deal with the blockages and transcend them, fix them, work with the planets, then it doesn't matter what's going on transits wise, all hell could break loose, but you'll be fine, right? So I needed to use astrology for healing. I went to other healing modalities. I took up tarot also with Mysterium. At the same time, I met many people in the community, and then I got introduced to so many different other modalities. I also studied Reiki. I'm a Reiki 2 certified practitioner. And past life regression, I was afraid of because I know that when you deal with the subconscious mind and you don't know what you're doing, and many people in the community suffer from anxiety attacks and all sorts of, depression and all that. I didn't want to mess with it. I wanted to be sure that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. So I looked for an accredited school of hypnotherapy in the USA. Well, I was looking all over the world, but that's the one that came up. I also enrolled in UK, but then anyhow, the one in the USA was for past life regression under HMI, which is automatically when you're done, you're a member of the American Hypnosis Association, which I thought was great. I don't do it just for the sake of getting certified, but it gives credibility to the practice. I know I'm guiding them safely because I was trained by teachers who gave us the parameters. If they go into the state, this is what you do. If this happens, this is what you do. Interview them beforehand. Do they have any health conditions, right? And ask permission from doctors if they are taking medication for any kind of illness. You have to be safe. So that's what I do first. I ask them questions and then I guide them through hypnosis and help them clear their karma. So I got into it to help heal people, to help people deal with their charts, what I see in their charts. And, when you say clear karma, my yogi, my guru will get mad at me for saying that. She doesn't really, they burn some scaras in yoga, but then see, in my practice, I veered away from some of the teachings because in the age of Aquarius are now coming up with new information that old schools of thought didn't have. If you look at the younger generation and how fast they're learning, right? Quantum healing, I'm also a quantum healer. So I use that too for clearing karma. So that's why I got into hypnotherapy, to help people, if they can't deal with the karma that's happening in this life, usually there are connections between you and others, especially family. There's always karma there. And so there are soul contracts in past lives and that carry over into this lifetime because it hasn't been dealt with or it's needed for your journey in this life. And so when I take them to past lives, we cut the cords all the way to the death scene because that's the most important in a past life. People have healed completely from illnesses that could not be diagnosed properly by doctors and have gone into past lives and come out of it healed. I mean, we don't guarantee it, but it has happened often enough. Yeah.
Just a few questions. I'll get into actually astrology as well because I spoke with an aspiring or let's say a beginner astrologer, and she got into it because she came from a bad relationship, and then she wanted to understand why it happened. She studied astrology just to see. And she looked at the charts and she saw that it was bound to happen between them, between the two of them. And so we had this conversation between us and we were talking na parang, how fixed, how. So my question is, what are your thoughts on technically predestiny? Kasi it's supposedly it's written in the stars. It's a cosmic. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. That's a good question because that always comes up. Okay. When we talk about predestined, you were born into the family you're born into. You have no say in that, right? That's predestined. Events on a chart will show you if you have a tendency to get very ill, for instance, or you're accident prone, because I have seen it in some charts. Although this woman, I'll just give you an example. She's from Finland. But the reason I'm mentioning her is because it's very hard to read it sometimes to Filipinos because we're more emotional. People in Northern Europe are stoic, right? I asked permission from her if I could read to her because I'm seeing some things that were a little bit too sensitive. And I asked permission from her if I could be really blunt. I saw a series of head injuries, impacts that were deadly, that were very transformative because it was pointing to the planet that shows transformation. And I explained to her why, right, what was needed. And she asked me, if you had read my chart before the accident, what would have changed it? Could I have changed it? Normally, an astrologer would say no. I used to follow the traditional way of looking at it because that's how it is when you start learning astrology. The thing is, when you look at a person's chart, there's a planet of karma, there are lessons to be learned, there's a trajectory. You start the chain of events, you eventually end up following the energy of the planets that are pulling you towards that predestined event. But if, for instance, at the very beginning, where the problem really is, the root cause is, let's say, you're a very reckless person, you're very arrogant, you're very angry at the world, you take chances, you don't care who gets hurt, right? So now the planet of karma and all other stuff in the chart that shows karma is going to teach you a hard lesson in life. If I had told her beforehand and she had worked on all the root cause of these things that needed to be curtailed or mellowed out, or lessons she needed to learn early on, perhaps she would have still met accidents, but not the same intensity. See, because a friend of mine recently was going on a trip somewhere, and he doesn't believe in astrology. But just the same, we were three astrologers looking at his chart saying Mars on Mars he was going on a motorbike tour in the house of short distance travel and hobbies, sextiling something in the hobby section. And so we said, okay, he might meet an accident on these dates because there's a certain period, right? And we told him. And he said, I don't believe in these things. Yeah, we know, but it's always best to just be careful, so don't be reckless, you know. And he totally forgot about it. He really did, but he was careful anyway because he was in this European country where there were no cars. So he felt safe and they weren't really reckless because it was like, what are those big bikes? Harley Davidson bikes.
Yeah.
So they don't drive really fast on those. So when he was parking it, he was getting off. Suddenly, some car comes, hits the back of his bike, and he's hurled off his bike. You know,
Wow.
yeah, but nothing so tragic. He didn't need to go to the hospital. But if he was on the road and that happened, it would have been worse, right? What do you make of that? Was that destined to happen? If I was that guy, would I cancel? Because I know beforehand, would I cancel my trip? Would I make decisions and be really careful on the road?
So yeah, that's my question for you actually. Parang
I would cancel my trip. I would go. I would be careful. That's a decision That's your free will.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that that transit is going to go away. So while I'm in the Philippines, I could ride a car and get into an accident as well. So do I lock myself up at home?
Yes.
Right? But your choices, these things will, what we're talking about here is energies. The energy of the planets, that the moon dictates the tides, that right? And so we can't tell the moon to stop, right? Bringing up the tides, and we can't tell the moon to do that. We can't tell the sun to stop rising. These are forces beyond our control, but we do have choices within whatever's going on. We have choices, and I've noticed that if you transcend the karma on your chart, if you work with it, if you work especially with the planet Saturn, um, then after your Saturn return at the age of 27, more or less to 29, you reap better karma. So if a transit like that can happen again, but it's less. I know somebody who has indication of like Saturn in the seventh house, an indication of possible death of spouses, whose husband did that. But see, since it's the seventh house of marriage, which means every time she gets married, she's like a black widow, right? But she's already been with people long term afterwards and nothing happened to them. See, so it gets better and better as you work with yourself.
As you clear your karma, is that the right term for that?
That's why I really got into past life, because that's one of the best ways to go deep into the psyche of a person and reprogram, and cut the karma, the guilt, whatever it is you take with you, because we store it in our bodies. We store the memories in our bodies. That's why children who have they've studied, who recall past lives, right? Like, you're not my mom. My mom is this person, or they have scars on their bodies from how they died in a past life. They remember exactly how they died, and it's been researched and corroborated, information and verified. They have full names of people, um, their past parents, their friends, all that, and all of it was true. And these were children born in places that had no way, let's say in China, all the way. You would say he was in UK before, So past life is quite interesting.
Okay. Yes. Very. Actually, very. Actually, my next question is: have you had? I mean, if you can share, you don't have to name names, but have you had really weird or out there past lives? Because usually it's parts of history. But again, the more I get to talk to people, and the more I get to talk to people who are experiencers, the more stories I hear of past lives which transcend our known history.
Yeah. Okay. Most are weird. I mean, what I mean by weird, I really don't know what weird is. Uh, I don't know what weird is. It may be weird to others, but not to me, right?
Yes.
Uh, the past lives, or some of them, were in places that were not on Earth,
Okay.
because of the description. Because what I do is, when I take you to a past life regression, you're viscerally experiencing. We put to sleep all your conscious, the conscious mind, and I take you to data level where you are. It's like you're in your own virtual reality or your own film. You're there. You smell everything. You feel everything. You sense everything. You're that person. You're participating in it. So it's a first person perspective. And I asked them, the job of a hypnotherapist, apart from the healing I do in the end, really is to get as much information as possible from the client. Because if you were to do it, let's say self hypnosis, if you were to do it yourself, you could. You could actually get there on your own. But when you're there, nobody's really telling you. Let's say you see a building and you're like, oh, there's a building, and then it just kind of just happens randomly. When there's a voice guiding you, asking you, what's the color of the building? What do you see any signs along the street? Where are you? What's the country? What's your name? Do you have a last name? How are you feeling right now? Are you scared? Are you, very, so that when they come out of it, we have a whole story. Now, some of the weirdest things were, out. Just they would tell me I'm standing on this rock, so that would be an Earth, right? So, rock. And I said, well, there's a mirror to your right. Look at your body. Describe yourself. And they're like, I'm green. And I have them describe the body. I have long arms, and I have a small body. My head is big, and I'm scared because this is not my planet. I can see my planet.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what's the planet? So they give me a name. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not Earth, right?
Yes.
And then suddenly the ground is shaking, and then this person fell into that hole and died there. And so this person remembers the pain, the loss, the loneliness, the feeling ostracized or whatever, because she didn't get the story as to why she ended up in another country, because she already went straight into the death scene when she arrived.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes what's shown to you is the most important thing that you need to work through.
Mm-hmm.
So after the death scene, so when you go through the death scene, you're not gonna feel it physically like you're actually dying.
Yes.
You're gonna feel the emotions. You're gonna feel it energetically. Right now, if they go into a state of panic, then that's why it's important to go to a certified hypnotherapist. Because if they panic, because some deaths are tragic, like that being buried right alive,
Yes.
I can take them to a place. I know how to get them out of it safely. But otherwise, nothing really bad has ever happened. I've had people tell me really tragic stories, like skiing and then being caught by the jacket being caught in a tree and then being strangled by whatever, and dying that way. That's not really weird, but it's tragic. I've had people tell me they were, you can be any gender, right? I've not heard anyone tell me they were a dog or a cat, to be honest. No one. I've heard somebody was a dragon. Weird. That to me was the first. She was a baby dragon until she got bigger. And nothing really much happened in that life except she was just hopping around being a dragon. And it was all about self-empowerment in the end anyway. But she didn't believe in her magical abilities or power and all these things beyond. And so the dragon was showing her some her past life as a dragon, I guess, showed her some things that were hard to accept as human, that you have your own power within, right? That's what she needed to learn from that. Which is a lesson. And we have to figure it out in the end when I work with clients. Yeah, and then what else were the weird ones? One was just a dot. Okay, this one is another weird one. It was just a spark of light among all the stars around, but she knew everybody, all the other stars around her. It's like they're all friends, but they're just
Mm-mm.
shining out there in space. And that was all. That was her, and she felt blissful and happy. That was her experience. And there were some that were kings, queens from like other places, just not Earth, because of they're human. The bodies are human.
Humanoid. Mm-mm.
They were very tall, for example. The surrounding is not like Earth. There are gemstones and weird things, and then animals that don't look like anything on Earth. Or human-like, but the eyes are super big.
Yeah. Question with that. So when you do a past life regression, how do you know which past life to go to? Or is that something you work with them about?
You have to give me your intention. For example, I'd like to know my past relationship with this person, right? Or I'd like to I show me a past life where I have important lessons that I need to learn that's keeping me from growing in this lifetime. Sorry, my neighbor's dogs are
It's
noisy.
okay. It's okay. So technically, parang they give you their intention, and from that intention, you just kind of connect to the past life that is relevant for that intention.
Right. Because you know the subconscious mind really is an amazing thing. It's really where we store everything. If um, if we just go deep into our subconscious, we connect to all different aspects of ourselves and dimensions.
I talked to this guy before, and he felt he had access to his past lives when he was dreaming. In his dream, he would be riding some sort of train. He felt it was a train. This story is in reference to a past episode, Sam's Past Lives. You might want to revisit that story in case you want to hear more about it. I'll post the link in the show notes. And then he would be dropped off into one past life. He'd be a gladiator. He'd be somewhere in London, but everything was that he would be killing someone. So we felt na again we had a group of friends talk with him, and they said that it probably has to do something with your karma also as well. That you have to stop killing.
True. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people get into it out of curiosity. But really, in my practice of any form of spirituality, if you can't bring it to earth in this lifetime, if you can't use it here, then it's not useful to anyone. It's not for entertainment. I don't, I do it for a purpose. Like exactly that. Let's say mother and daughter aren't getting along, and on a chart I can see what the daughter and mother need to do to be able to get along, but there's still a lot of heavy karma there, ancestral karma and all that. Then we cut cords with that lifetime, and therefore when they come to, their lives improve, right? Their relationships improve. So that's how I view it. That's me. That's my personal practice.
Yes. Actually, I'll have a question for that because, again, this is from. I understand you have your own beliefs, of course, and your own practice. But we talked to another practitioner. Well, I can't define what he does, but probably you could say a paranormal investigator. But he also does other things, and he said sometimes when people approach him with for healing, and he sees that there is karmic debt to that person, usually he does not. He finds a way to just, okay, this is what you can do, but I'm not sure if I can fix it. Because the reason is, he said, for him, if he kind of tries to help with the karmic, I don't know what you call it, but the karmic system, if he tries to mess with it, he said that there are certain life, or let's say the person is in his seventh life or whatever, he can only cut that karmic whatever by the third or the fourth. I'm not sure if tama yung pag-alala ko. Pero a point niya, if I do it the wrong way, that karma will pass on to me.
Whatever you believe is what will happen. So if you believe that, sure.
Okay.
That's how powerful our minds are. We really create our own reality. And so I have not had anything come back.
Okay. Okay. Mm-mm.
My experience, because I really don't believe that.
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't happen to me. What happens really, you can't take on somebody else's karma. I don't absorb anyone else's karma. The reason I also moved on to, apart from past life regression, I added quantum healing onto it, because then you really align with the light. It's really It's light that heals. That's why in all healing practices, Reiki, all that, you imagine a white light. That's really what cleans up everything. And love, the portal from the heart, is really alignment, is really, and love is not what humans think of as love, like hugging and kissing love. No, it's not that. It's a it's a deeper kind of love. It's a subtle and detached kind of love, and it's love for everything and acceptance, and for what is, and having no resistance. And so when you come from that space and you have to come from that space. I have to align myself before I heal. In quantum healing, we align the mind and the heart, and we connect to the higher realms and the divine. So we build our energetic field to protect and to heal. And then I bring in other modalities because in quantum healing, beyond quantum healing, we're allowed to do that. So I bring in Reiki, all other modalities to remove. And I've had clients who had anxiety attacks, major. She's had it for years. And she went to all kinds of practitioners, and she heard about quantum healing and past life regression. So she was afraid to do it online. So she traveled all the way from Batangas, entered the hotel, and I sat with her through it. And she was panicking. It was actually difficult, one of my most difficult clients, because she kept panicking. And she had heart problems too. So we had to work with the doctor. Anyhow, she hasn't had an anxiety attack since. No anxiety. She even got COVID and she didn't have an anxiety attack. For a split second, she said she did when she found COVID. But then even as she was healing from COVID, she was going through the whole COVID phase, she was fine. So, I mean, you can't sometimes, there are things you can't really fully explain, but she's okay now. She didn't even believe it at first. Her husband was contradicting the whole time. Like, why do we have to travel to Manila for this? Wasn't getting any support. I told her, if you're going to do this, you have to surrender. If you're going to do this, you have to trust. Because why pay for a service and then you're not going to go all the way? Test it, right? 100%. So give me your trust 100% and then we'll do it. So that's what we did.
Was it external or was it an internal issue?
It was psychological. Yeah.
Okay. That's one of the things I've been seeing. I mean, I can't, di ako expert, so I just base it on observation from the people we talk to and from the people I interact with on the podcast and on Discord, our community. And one of the things that is consistent, well, not consistent, but I see the pattern sometimes, or maybe I'm seeing patterns, but most people with, let's say, some paranormal issues, let's say they're seeing things, they're experiencing there are manifestations, yes, but sometimes the root is psychological in nature.
Very much so. I really believe that. Although there are so many things embedded in our subconscious mind, so many things that we don't even recognize. But that's what produces a lot of things, repetitive patterns in our lives that when you look at astro charts, you can see the patterns and the root cause. And when I bring it up and I say, this is where it all started, and they're, like blown away by it. Really? That. But now that you mentioned it, that they start thinking back to the trauma or whatever. Because trauma, for a person, it can be anything. As kids, we don't know how to process things intelligently sometimes or logically. We just react, right? And we store it in there. And so it becomes a part of us that we buried. And therefore, we react to certain situations based on that without realizing that that's the reason. So it could be as simple as you were spanked by your dad with a newspaper, which isn't really beating you up, right? That's just but then some kids are more sensitive than others. So that's traumatic for that person. They're afraid of their dad, or the sound of a newspaper, or the sight of one, or something like that.
Going back to astrological charts, but again, you mentioned soul contract. So I'm sure you kind of believe that before you go in to this, let's say this meat husk, before you go in, you have that. Okay, for this life, this is what I'm going to experience, something like that. And it kind of aligns. So parang you have the, because of the astrological charts, you go in to this body at this certain point in time. So is that how you understand it to work?
Astrological chart, for example, I'll say, oh, you have a lot of karma with your mother. Okay? So the intention will be to go to a past life involving what I've seen on the chart with mother, or ancestral karma. If it's ancestral, then show me, where I need to go to heal my ancestral karmic wounds. On a chart, somebody has a problem, an eating disorder. And so we ask, what is the reason for that? So this person who had this eating disorder went back to a lifetime where she was starving. She was eating food from the garbage, even though her family had food on the table. She was not treated well by her parents, and therefore she preferred to get food from the garbage, and then eventually put up her own village where she was like the head, and she was feeding everyone. So it was all about food, and it helped her curtail after that her eating disorder. She hasn't had cravings that she'd given into. So it's amazing how people's lives improve after, a past life regression. I'm not saying it's the one will cure all, but if you go deep into it and you have the right intention for whatever it is you really need to fix, you can diminish the problem up to 80%. I mean, really, I've seen it happen. I've seen people's lives improve and change, even health. So that's the reason I love what I'm doing, right? Because then people really improve. There's results.
Is that kind of also written in, I mean, weird question, pero let's say for people who do past life regression, is it kind of in their astrological charts that, oh, this person is bound to have a regression in this lifetime? Do you kind of see that also?
I really haven't, okay, I haven't checked specifically if they're going to go into regression. I if they have curiosity, you can see if somebody's into these paranormal stuff. There are houses on a chart that show you if they're inclined. Once you enter, if you see strong planets or stuff going on there, then you know that they're gonna delve into these things. So it's very possible they would do a past life regression too. But there's stuff on charts that show past lives. I mean, actually, that's an interesting thing to bring up. I should do that the next time I have a client. Like, let me check your transits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done that.
Going to old souls lang. So do you believe that there are or everyone you encounter usually an old soul? Kasi yun nga, usually it goes way back pero
Yeah, we've all lived so many lives. I haven't encountered anyone who was like it's their first time on Earth. I haven't yet. Maybe the Dragon Girl. I mean, because she asked for the most important past life. I can't remember exact, but yeah, something where she needed to learn stuff. But she went to 3 different past lives, and they were all something like that. She was a blob of light, a purple light. Then she was a dragon. I forgot the last one, but she was not human. So it could mean she's new on Earth, right? It could mean that. I didn't ask that question because that I remember that client was very scared. So I had to focus more on keeping her calm. Yeah.
was there anything different about her? I mean, parang based on what you said, na parang this is the first time she's come to Earth. So baka iniisip ko, is there a different attitude? Or when you see her, do you see something different from her?
She's a bit naive. She's she's she doesn't, when you meet like tayo as humans, right?
Yeah.
Walking around, we meet someone, we say he's an old soul, right? Because you feel the wisdom, you feel there's something they know or stuff like that. She doesn't have that. She has a very naive, innocent, like she's in awe. Right? There's this naivety about her. But we're not close friends. But that's what I noticed energetically when I was talking to her. And she got guided because a friend told her about it, and she was just curious.
Okay.
That's the reason.
Have you met anyone that ito yung basa mo sa charts niya, pero it doesn't align with
Yeah, a
yes
lot.
lang. Okay.
Because I look, because the question had nothing to do with, let's say, for instance, okay, on a chart, I'll see that their husband is somebody that their husband now was their mom or dad before. Just say, what happened in that lifetime that caused them to decide to be husband and wife with this one, right? Because the dynamic in the relationship is the other one's acting like a parent, right? As husband and wife. Oh, that makes sense. So anyhow, sometimes it takes you to another place. Like this guy was a kid who was a superhero on a balloon, flying through this house. First, I'm like, what has that got to do with
Yes.
with mommy and daddy, right? We were taken to a completely different place, and at the end of the whole story, he had to enter that house, and he was so scared of the hallway. It was a dark, scary hallway, and every time he tried to cross, doors would open in the hallway and try to pull him in, and he was so scared. It was his fears of what was at the end and what was the path he was on. So he was very, 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 he was blocking himself from, from a lot of things, from loving. So he was in a dark place emotionally, psychologically. He was afraid. And their marriage was falling apart. So what he was being told really was to first deal with that before the dynamics between them was not the problem, basically. There is that issue, right? But that wasn't the problem. There were other things that he needed to clear. Lots of things, because so many doors were open, trying to pull him and get him off the path of reaching the light, because there's a light at the end of that hallway. Yeah, that was interesting. Sometimes it shows up in metaphors.
Okay.
Yeah, that one was very metaphor because he was a superhero, and that's right. He was flying on top of the house, but he felt he was strong on the outside, but he couldn't get on the inside. So there's a disconnection between himself and what he was projecting. Yeah. So later on, that guy, we had 3 sessions because he was really having problems trusting himself. Yeah. So you when you work with people like that, you really need to talk to them, right? And get them to trust in these things. And him and his wife eventually they parted, which was on the chart. I just didn't tell him.
Yes.
I didn't tell him because he didn't need to know that yet, right? He didn't ask
He
either.
didn't ask you also.
Because I don't want to put that if you see they didn't have to part because on the chart they're gonna get back together again anyway.
In another life or in this life?
Because there's first marriage, second marriage, third marriage, and all that. Like if it's Elizabeth Taylor, like how many
No.
marriage you go around the chart many times. So she was still the one in his second marriage. So they're getting back together. Yeah. So it's just that it could have been avoided, I guess, or the break could have been avoided if he had worked on. That's what I mean by free will. Work on his issues.
Actually, I'm sure probably after this episode, when this comes out, people will, amongst themselves, they will ask na, for some people that, kasi some people have a surface knowledge on astrology. So they will check their charts, di ba? And they will see, oh, this will happen, this will. So, how would you answer yung mga ganong pilosopo na, nasa charts ko na naman yan, wala na akong gagawin. Parang, mangyayari't mangyayari eh.
That's fatalism.
Yes.
I don't recharge to disempower people. I mean, I do it to help. It's a guide. It gives you a clear picture from the higher perspective. You're looking at the chart from the top. The Earth is at the center, and those are the constellations and planets revolving around Earth. Because it's a geocentric perspective. And so you see the story and why this is happening or why that's happening and what's gonna happen. But really, it's all about you. That's all you. That's right. That's who you are and what you're meant to do, what you're meant to become. And you can either vibrate to the higher aspects of the chart or become a victim of circumstances and a defeatist.
Yes.
Right? I've seen there's still a choice. There's still a choice.
I remember talking to one friend about this, and he told me that technically your A to Z is plotted out, and there are small stops within the way. But whatever you do, whatever happens, even if you, let's say, something happens that pushes you from that line of going back to, let's say, letter L, eventually you'll go back to that path. Is that how you see it? Sorry, malabo yung analogy, but
Yeah. That's actually a good way of explaining it. If you're meant to be famous on a chart, you will be famous. But how are you going to handle the fame? It's the how. It's the what, more or less, will be there. There are degrees on a chart. I mean, degrees of intensity, of probabilities that say this is definitely going to happen because the planets aligned here are so strong, right? This one, it's going to happen, but like there's room to maneuver, right? Maybe not as bad. Maybe, I mean, it's not negotiable, but all the planets, because one of my astrologer friends said, I had a client who asked me, Meg, can I go to this other astrologer because I've heard about him? I said, sure, he's my friend. Go to him. And so I told this other astrologer, I said, hey, my client, this is her name. She wants to book with you. And he said, oh, nag-book na sa akin, pero the reading is still, I don't know when. And he said, I don't understand these people. Why are they going from one astrologer to another? Pareho lang naman yung planets. If Saturn is there, I won't move Saturn, no? He said, for a different perspective, different advice, I might have missed something that you will see, right? I'd never turn down clients who come to me because they said they've had readings from others. Everybody has a different way of reading, not a different way of interpreting the actual planets. If you know it, there's a way to interpret the planets, but a different way of like the wisdom that comes with it or the perspective, right? Yeah, giving advice or I don't really like using predictive just for the sake of predictive. As very much not against it. I'm not really against anything. It's just I'm not comfortable. I like to look at growth on a chart.
Have there been instances that a spirit or an entity forbade you to help someone access their past life?
No.
No?
I always I have my own practice before I read any chart. I attune to the planets, the planetary gods. And I asked for not permission really. I just asked them to show me what they're meant to show me on a chart, so I can lead and heal or help this person the best way I could. And since I've never had a problem,
Okay.
never had, but yeah, I've had a client deny everything on the chart because there's a part in the chart that shows you that when a person doesn't want to, when they're trying to project a certain image that's very different from what's really going on. And I saw that and I said, oh, I think I'm going to have a hard time with this one. I don't think she's going to admit this and this because there's a lot of drama and bad stuff going on. But she kept saying, no, we're perfect. No, it's perfect. Everything's perfect. I said, oh, then maybe I'm not the astrologer for you. So I just refunded her money. If I can get past that, if the client won't let me, I mean, I told her there's no other way I can interpret this planet here, here, and here. So maybe I'm not the astrologer for you. So that I just let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's. There's another one. I'll give you an example. This American in the USA, sabi ko sa kanya, it shows that you come from a very devout, strict Catholic, or not Catholic, but religious upbringing, or at least whatever you were taught when you were young. It seems that they were really very strict about it. Of course not. No, no. I said, okay, how was your religious upbringing? Well, every Sunday we had to go to, I forgot what kind of church. It's a Protestant or whatever. And we were not allowed to mingle with other kids who were not of that same blah, 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 blah. And he described the whole thing. I'm like, that's what I meant by strict. Different way of explaining it, but that's right. So sometimes it's just the way you say it that doesn't resonate.
Yes, yes.
It wasn't strict because that's normal, but that's strict, right?
Yes, that's very strict. Oh.
When they say no like this, I'm like, okay, so what do you mean by no? Blah blah blah. It really also is about trying to find a way to figure out why you're seeing that, because I'm sure, let's say I'm really sure, right? And the person saying no. Because if really based on their story it's not right, then maybe I missed something. Let me check again, right? I'm not afraid to admit if I made mistakes, right? That everybody knows perfect. But I do my homework.
Yes.
I'm studying also to get certified now in Hellenistic astrology and nightlight astrology. So I need 4 years to get my certification, but still, I'm on my first year pa lang.
Can I ask, what is Hellenistic astrology?
Hellenistic astrology is the very first. It's the original. You follow the. It's hard to explain. You follow the primary motion and not the secondary motion, which is what we normally do now. Primary motion is the path of the sun, more than the. Anyway, it's moving in a different direction, and there's a different way of interpreting a chart. So it's just a way. I mean, there's so many ways. People ask me, is Vedic better than modern tropical, all that? And I tell people, choose one, master it, because they all have a way of interpreting charts, and we will all come up with the same impression of who you are, because that is designed. Their style, Vedic, is designed to figure you out using that system. My system is designed, the one I use, to figure you out using this system. They're both accurate, just don't mix the systems. I can't do tropical and then suddenly switch to Vedic and look at their nakshatras when I'm using another system altogether. So that's how I look at it. You can be good as long as you master what you know. So for me, it doesn't matter. You can go see all astrologers. Go check out there are special types of astrology, like horary, where you ask a question and then the astrologer will draft a chart to answer it, which is more like divination. But I so much accuracy in it. They use it. I'm part of a group where I see them use it to find lost objects in detail. For instance, piece of paper that a document and this person, so the astrologers all banded together and read a horary chart and said, it's in this place underneath the pile beside an old chair, and there's this light coming through shining on that pile. And the person said, where? Either below, somewhere dark, in the basement, or somewhere dark, you know. And so anyway, they had the basement, went downstairs. It was not a lamp shining on the thing, because they said it was a lamp.
Yes.
It was the moon shining through the window on that pile of paper, and she found the document. That accurate, you know? Yeah, and then there's medical astrology. There's so many types of astrology. For people who like, I don't do medical astrology because I just tell people, I can see your health might be a problem. Just be careful. Now, if you feel anything, go to a doctor. That's what I say. Because I can't heal them if they already are sick. Like if you have a heart problem, see a doctor.
Very interesting. And I didn't know ganun pala sa astrology. And mas maraming subclasses of astrology. Have you experienced anything na, kasi I'm sure with the practice you do, I mean it's astrology and also it's past life regression. Have you had psychic attacks from, sorry, weird question, pero have you had psychic attacks from entities or spirits that?
No, I protect myself.
Okay.
So I haven't, really. I haven't. There was one time, but this has nothing to do with my practice. There was one time I was in a course, and my mentor, it was an intuitive course where we practiced our intuition, and my mentor asked us to dive deep into her mind. I told her, this is what I see, a tree in a calm lake, but it looks like a really old place, a big old tree with the leaves, like, you know, like when it's a bit scary, like facing downwards. And then I could see the roots going into the water, and then they're like black octopus, what do you call that? Tentacles. And she said, anyway, when I came out and I told her about that, she said, wow, that's the first place I met my guide, because she is the person who banishes hexes. And she said, that's the first place I met my guide. That's my dark angel. The thing was, the second time we were practicing, because there was a course, that thing showed up again, but like on a moon. Anyway, problem was, I talked to it. I asked the name, who are you, or what's your name, or something like that. And this time, the tentacles sounded like snakes, like rattlesnakes or something. So that night, at about, I can't even remember, 2 a.m., 1 a.m., I was up. And I live on a mountain ridge in a village that's very quiet. I know the sounds of nature here. I know, and everybody's asleep by 9 p.m. So I heard on my rooftop, because I have a rooftop, the sound of those legs. And I contacted my guides, and I asked the thing to go away. And I just, with love, it didn't threatening. It's just there, curious, and I just and it went away. So I'm not really scared. I've seen a lot of weird stuff in this world, so I'm not really scared. I actually saw Tapre face to face. I mean, face to face on my window. A face peeking through my window, kind of. So I'm not scared. Like I even went near it because it was all white. It wasn't the dark one, so white one. And I stood there for about 10 minutes because I had to convince myself that I was seeing it.
Okay. That's a long time to convince yourself.
So I have to. But there were 3 other people who were there with me who witnessed it too. But they were shouting at me, "Get out of there!" I'm like, no, I need to convince myself, this is real. Yeah, so I'm not really, maybe because I'm not scared, I feel really very, I do my practice, I do my alignment, I do my shielding. I don't even do a lot of shielding. I just have my crystals here.
Okay. What crystals do you use? Kasi magiging question yun sa akin.
I have amethyst too. Of course, I have so many. But for protection, obsidian, selenite, and black tourmaline. Those are my three main. And then I'm very close to Jupiter, so I have yellow sapphire and citrine. I wear that all the time on my wrist.
Have you, I mean, you said that you've seen a lot of things, but have you seen entities not of this planet?
This planet, aliens. Uh, I've seen angels, but I always did. They're not of this planet.
Yes. Oo, sige, pasok. pasok.
My shamanic journey, Mother Mary, very clearly. I don't know if this one was of this planet, but it was. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's Kali, which most people would freak out if they saw Kali, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my guides, actually, and one of Jaime Licao. You know Jaime Licao back then. I don't know if he still does it now. He had a top 10 list of psychics per year, the ones who were accurate. And then my yogi friend, or like I said, my guru, quote unquote, she would organize, she did one time. She organized top 5 and invited 20 people. And then we went from one, we sat with each one of them, each 5. And it was explained to us early on, not just because this one's top 1, this is the one that will resonate with you. Sometimes, it doesn't matter. Any of the 5 would see more. It all depends on the energy they offer. There's this one, and I think she was the second best there. The one with, they said she had a duende on her shoulder whispering whatever she needed to tell me. And I was 23 years old. I was still young. And I always had this problem with my neck and my back. My shoulder blades were always painful, even as a child, which is weird because no child gets that stressed out. And I wasn't stressed out. It's just painful in a different way. So she asked me about that. Meron ka bang masakit mula bata ka, here or your back? I said, oh, yeah, that's been my problem ever since. She said, okay, so there's this snake. Oh my God, what do you mean? There's this snake on top of your back, attached to you, facing the other way. I said, what's that? So I wasn't really deep into these things yet. I was just sort of like, so I was like, why is there? So I didn't like it. I was so scared. I just completely ignored her. But she just told me, hindi, maganda yan. Nagpo-protect yan sa'yo. So I didn't pay attention to it until when Kali showed herself to me. She was this snake too. Showed me herself as a snake also. And she told me that her position on my chart and what she's really supposed to do. So yeah, I've had weird experiences like that. At the end of the day, I just like, okay, fine. You're welcome to stay as long as you don't hurt me. I'm not feeling anything heavy, and I'm fine with it, right? I mean, I don't scare myself. I just do my job. I try to be the best person I can be, right? And then I feel that everything will be fine. Life will always have its ups and downs. That's one thing we learn from astrology. If there's something good happening on your chart, there's always something bad happening on another part of your chart. So, Jupiter and brings blessings, Saturn brings a lot of. In fact, there are more planets that bring destruction in a chart or pain or whatever than good stuff.
So it's a good practice to. Ako personally, that's how I how I deal with with stuff is I understand that whatever happiness you are feeling now, something is bound to make you feel really sad also at the same time. So for me, that's how I see it.
I mean, take out the rose tinted glasses, right? I mean, there is such a thing as toxic positivity. Really look at life for what it is and also find the beauty in it, regardless of what's happening. And always be grateful for things, good or bad, because that's really the number one rule in manifestation. Really. You attract more good when you're grateful for everything, even the bad. It's not really all bad. Sometimes it's just transitory. It's leading you somewhere. You know that, right? I'm sure you've had experiences where it seemed bad at that time, but once that was done and you look back in hindsight, it was actually a very valuable thing to learn.
That helped transform you or transform whatever it was you were doing. Yeah. Ayun. Meg, if you'd like to, I mean, I'm not sure if you're comfortable with it, but if you want to invite people to whatever services or stuff you might help them with.
Well, I would love to have people who are interested in past life regression. I offer that service regularly. Just contact me on. I'm just on Facebook. I have WhatsApp, but I'm on Facebook under Astrology Esoterica Academy and Beyond Quantum Healing Philippines. So those are my two pages. I have courses in astrology that I give for basic all the way to predictive. I also have courses with Mysterium Philippines for astrology. I offer courses. I have a lot of other retreats for women called Venus Magnetism. It's about, well, women would love this. It's really about men being from Mars and women from Venus, maximize the magnetism and so that we balance out the energies and we form better loving relationships with the men. And yeah, because we're really very different in the love department. And so that retreat has been one of my best ones so far. Lots of women have grown from it and I've seen results. So I love that one. I have manifestation courses called Sexy Magic, either private or group also. And then I have a Zoria retreat. But that Zoria retreat is offered to those who are a little bit more advanced, where I attune them to their planetary gods so they can work with the planetary gods. So those are my, and then I have a host of other services, all astrology and hypnosis.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you so much for taking the time and
Thank you, Nick. Thanks. It was interesting. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
thanks, Mega. Thank you again, Margaret, for agreeing to be a guest on the podcast. I think this dive into past lives will not end here. I keep coming up with more questions as I record this. Hopefully, we hear more stories and more experiences with past life regression so we can create a clearer picture of how this whole system works. I remember watching a lot of Jeff Mara's podcast to listen to NDE, near-death experiences stories, and how there are so many similar experiences. I actually have some questions that I never got to ask. So do we instantly reincarnate? Do we wait and choose? Do we check the astrological signs before we choose to jump in? I remember this Dolores Cannon interview where she said why some people have uneventful lives. And she said maybe they are in a resting state, recuperating from a past life or preparing for what is to come. And this actually brought up more questions than answers. Do you get to choose? Is that part of your soul contract? Since time is technically non-existent in the ether, do souls technically jump in and out of different lives? Choosing the correct astrological day to be born? Ayun, hindi talaga matatapos ang episode sa kakatanong ko. Do you have a past life that you'd like to share? You can reach me at paranormalsph@gmail.com or you can tell it via chat in the Discord server. I'll post the invite link in the show notes, which you will need to click to join the Discord server. The Discord server is like a big chat room where you can choose which category to tell your story. To join, again, you just have to click on the invite link. If this is the first episode you're listening to, hello, and welcome to the podcast. The Paranormal Podcast is a collection of paranormal stories which are mostly first-hand stories from different people in the Philippines and sometimes around the world. They are stories that overlap, have sequels, or have ongoing stories. But in general, each story you will hear is unique. If you enjoy this type of conversation, you might want to subscribe so you can be updated if there are new episodes. You can check us out on Facebook, Spotify, or YouTube. We have new episodes every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Spotify, and Thursdays, 1:37 p.m. on YouTube. Okay, andito na naman tayo sa segment ng Basahan ng Comments. Basahin natin ang comment sa episode 135, Grounding Earthing. Sabi ni Moni, "This episode kept my focus at work. I don't know why. Adding to cart, grounding mat. Wow, sana alls." Pero Moni, balitaan mo kami kung ano nangyari sa grounding mat experience mo. Ako hindi pa ako pumipindot sa add to cart na yan. Curious lang ako. Sabi naman ni Scarlett, "I'm just wondering if it's also considered earthing grounding if you're simply enjoying nature while on a trip. Is it really necessary to be fixed in one location with your bare feet on the ground?" Actually, magandang tanong yan. Recently, nasa labas ako and I had the opportunity to hold a tree. So, humawak ako, sumimple lang ako, nilagay ko yung kamay ko sa puno. Pero what if ganun nga, no? Pwede kaya na ma-enjoy mo lang yung nature at in your mind, nag-grounding ka na? I think yes. Oo rin. Sa episode next week, may kwento si Olivia tungkol dyan. Nag-grounding siya sa bintana ng condo niya. And nakikita niya yung black flecks na nakwento niya na before while grounding. Yung parang cleansing sa pagkaintindi niya. Pag inisip niyo naman kasi, ang important is yung intent. The power of thought, I guess, is enough sometimes if you believe you are already grounding. Pero again, for people like me, for some of you maybe, who are still working on the materialistic framework of life, meaning kailangan nakikita at nararamdaman natin bago natin paniwalaan, mas mag-work siguro ang physical grounding. Pero intayin ko ang sagot ng mga iba. Baka may iba kayong ma-share na pananaw or sagot nyo sa tanong ni Scarlett. Chime in lang kayo sa Spotify or sa Discord kung saan pwede humaba ang usapan. Ang comment naman ng ating kaibigang sawi na si Sky Crisford, walang masyadong kakatakutan ang episode pero ang kinakatakot ko lang naman ay ang iwan mo ako. Sad crying face emoji. Bagong tao ba na naman to, Sky Crisford? Kasi sa huling alala ko, sabi mo, hindi ka na pinapansin. Ngayon, natatakot kang iwan ka. Ang bilis ng turnover ni Sky Crisford. Focus ka muna sa isa para mas may retention. Sabi naman ni Nanthiel, "Gawain ko yan before mag-basketball. Yayakap muna ako sa puno. Ewan ko, feeling ko may nakukuha akong energy. Salamat po sa new at mind-feeding episode." Salamat rin sa pakikinig, Nanthiel. Actually, marami na ako nabasa sa Discord at nakausap na ginagawa talaga nila ang pag-akap sa puno. Pero yung iba, patago nila ginagawa or nagpapasimple sila pag gagawin nila. Kasi baka nga isipin baliw sila or something. Nagbago na naman ang mundo. Feeling ko hindi na kayo judge for that. Ako kasi, again, pasimple lang ako hahawak sa puno, panadalian, kunyari, nagpapahinga. I guess mas maganda natin gawing normal, di ba? Na masanay yung tao na umaakap sa puno, umahawak sa puno, nagtatanggal ng sapatos sa grassy area, di ba? Anyway, pakialam ba natin? Di naman natin kilala yung mga nakakakita sa atin. Pero tanong ko sa'yo, Nantiel, pag yumakap ka ba sa puno, nananalo ka sa basketball? Okay, punta naman tayo sa mga recent comments sa YouTube. Sa episode 137, si Eriza sabi, 3 raise hands emoji. Sa experience with Slenderman, si Eriza sabi, 3 raise hands emoji. Sa episode 131, si Eriza sabi, 3 raise hands emoji. Sa ang babaeng bumisita sa kakaibang mundo, si Eriza sabi, 3 raise hands emoji. Present! Eriza, compute ko attendance mo. Present ka. Wala ka. May ilang absent ka ha. Napansin ko lang. Pero kung gusto mo pumasa, padalang kitang makeup exam. Pero salamat. Salamat sa pag-comment. Thank you, Eriza. Of course, we won't forget to give a big shout out and thank you to our paranormal Patreons and coffee supporters. Sunny, J, Z, JT, JD, K, B, Justine, Leah, S na muna, and Ola. Maraming salamat. If you want to support the podcast, you can check out our Patreon and Coffee. I recently activated the YouTube subscriber option rin, where you get nearly the same perks as what you get on Patreon, in case mas nakakonect kayo sa YouTube. In case you're interested in supporting through these options, you can check the links sa show notes. The Paranormal Podcast is engineered and produced by F90 Productions. If you have the time, I would appreciate it if you can rate or review the show on whatever preferred delivery platform you listen to. Or you can leave a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Spotify. All of these are much appreciated. Sounds corny? Yes, but this interaction really helps the algorithm. It helps recommending the show to other people who might have questions about the paranormal world. Thank you everyone for listening. Please stay safe.